and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. And there is very grave danger. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. But I am asking your help of informing and alerting the American people.
There are few earthly things more beautiful than a university, wrote John Masefield in his tribute to English universities, and his words are equally true today. He admired the splendid beauty of a university because it was, he said, a place where those who hate ignorance may strive to know, where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see. I have therefore chosen this time and place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds and the truth too rarely perceived, and that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living. The kind of peace that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time. First, examine our attitude towards peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. Let us focus on a practical, more attainable peace, based not on a sudden revolution in human nature, but on a gradual evolution in human institutions, on a series of concrete actions and effective agreements which are in the interests of all concerned. There is no single simple key to this peace, no grand or magic formula to be adopted by one or two powers. Genuine peace must be the product of many nations, the sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenge of each new generation. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. So let us persevere. Peace need not be impractical, and war need not be inevitable. By defining our goal more clearly, by making it seem more manageable and less remote, we can help all people to see it, to draw hope from it, and to move irresistibly towards it. No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered as lacking in virtue. As Americans, we find communism profoundly repugnant as a negation of personal freedom and dignity. But we can still hail the Russian people, for their many achievements in science and space, in economic and industrial growth, in culture, in acts of courage. We must persevere in the search for peace in the hope that constructive changes within the communist bloc might bring within reach solutions which now seem beyond us. We must conduct our affairs in such a way that it becomes in the communist interest to agree on a genuine peace. For we can seek a relaxation of tensions without relaxing our guard. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute. We do not need to jam foreign broadcasts out of fear our faith will be eroded. We are unwilling to impose our system on any unwilling people, but we are willing and able to engage in peaceful competition with any people on earth. Speaking of other nations, I wish to make one point clear. We are bound to many nations by alliances. These alliances exist because our concern and theirs substantially overlap. Our commitment to defend Western Europe and West Berlin, for example, stands undiminished because of the identity of our vital interests. The United States will make no deal with the Soviet Union at the expense of other nations and other peoples, not merely because they are our partners, but also because their interests and ours converge. Our interests converge, however, not only in defending the frontiers of freedom, but in pursuing the paths of peace. It is our hope and the purpose of Allied policy to convince the Soviet Union that she too should let each nation choose its own future, so long as that choice does not interfere with the choices of others. The communist drive to impose their political and economic system on others is the primary cause of world tension today. For there can be no doubt that if all nations could refrain from interfering in the self-determination of others, the peace would be much more assured. Our primary long-range interest is general and complete disarmament, designed to take place by stages, permitting parallel political developments to build the new institutions of peace, which would take the place of arms. To make clear our good faith and solemn convictions on this matter, I now declare that the United States does not propose to conduct nuclear tests in the atmosphere so long as other states do not do so. We will not be the first to resume, but we proceed to safeguard our national interests. Let us also safeguard human interests. And the elimination of war and arms is clearly in the interests of both. No treaty, however much it may be to the advantage of all, however tightly it may be worded, can provide absolute security against the risks of deception and evasion. But it can, if it is sufficiently effective in its enforcement, and it is sufficiently in the interest of its signers, offer far more security and far fewer risks than an unabated, uncontrolled, unpredictable arms race. The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression. We shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall be alert to try to stop it. But we shall also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task or hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we must labor on, not towards a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy of peace.
Hitler has often protested that his plans for conquest do not extend across the Atlantic Ocean, but his submarines and raiders prove otherwise. And so does the entire design of his new world order. For example, I have in my possession a secret map made in Germany by Hitler's government, by the planners of the new world order. It is a map of South America and a part of Central America, as Hitler proposes to reorganize it. Today in this area, there are 14 separate countries. But the geographical experts in Berlin have ruthlessly obliterated all existing boundary lines. They have divided South America into 5 vassal states, bringing the whole continent under their domination. And they have also so arranged it that the territory of one of these new puppet states includes the Republic of Panama and our great lifeline, the Panama Canal. That is his plan. It will never go into effect.
He was put into a Garda van at the Bridewell Garda station and driven here. He had been arrested at 5:37 a.m. at Dublin Airport. He had flown back in from the United States in the early hours of the morning, and he met officers from the Garda Bureau of Fraud Investigation and officers working for the Director of Corporate Enforcement by arrangement. There was an appointment made and they met at Dublin Airport.
A 31-year-old man was arrested in London earlier today. A guy you could say had a bit of a gambling problem. Just how much money did he lose while working as a trader at the investment bank UBS? Just $2 billion.
Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner potentially facing criminal charges.
Geithner was the president of the New York Federal Reserve Bank in the fall of 2008 when the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and the White House and the Congress decided to bail out AIG.
Right.
In the process of that bailing out of AIG, many documents were exchanged. If you went to the bank to borrow money, you'd have to fill out documents. One of the documents AIG filled out said, we owe X dollars to Goldman Sachs and we plan on paying them 100 cents on the dollar. According to Bloomberg, emails that came out yesterday say that lawyers for the Federal Reserve Bank said, we were told to strike this from the form so that AIG would not reveal to the Treasury Department or to the public that this money was going to be paid to Goldman Sachs because that's a politically toxic issue. Goldman Sachs making a fortune, making 100 cents on the dollar with federal funds. Now, if you go to buy a $25 savings bond from the federal government and you falsify the document to acquire that bond, you can go to jail.
That's right.
If you borrow $185 billion from the government, like AIG did, and you falsify a document, even if the government told you to do so, the people involved can go to jail.
Debate in India over thousands of crores of black money being stashed away in secret Swiss bank accounts. A former Swiss banker has handed over details of offshore accounts of 2,000 high net worth individuals to the whistleblowing website WikiLeaks. Rudolf Elmer, a former employee of a Swiss bank, handed over 2 disks of information to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in London. He says they have information on tax evasion by celebrities, business leaders, and even politicians from the US, Britain, and Asia, but it's not yet clear if there are Indians on the list. Elmer says that after years of watching the money laundering trade, he wanted to do something about it. He will appear before a Zurich court on Wednesday, charged with violating strict Swiss banking secrecy laws. WikiLeaks now plans to put up the information on the website in a matter of weeks.
Pointed out that the arrests are not an indication of a systemic failure. Yesterday, at least 8 top officials of state-run banks and financial institutions have been arrested by the CBI on Wednesday. The allegations are that they accepted bribes in exchange for disbursing loans to corporate housing and realty companies, despite suspect credit records, and at other times for bailing out realty IPOs.
Royal Bank of Scotland is reportedly set to be fined €186 million for the same interbank interest rate rigging scandal that's hammered Barclays. The British regulator, the Financial Services Authority, says 4 banks, Barclays, RBS, HSBC and Lloyds, will have to pay compensation to customers because they missold products to protect small businesses against a rise in interest rates. There's anger in Ireland over revelations that executives at Anglo-Irish Bank lied to the Dublin government about how much money it would need in a bailout 5 years ago. The Irish Independent newspaper has got hold of tape recordings of top bosses there who laugh about the fact that the bank has told the government it only needs €7 billion. They also laugh about abusing the state bank guarantee, which eventually cost taxpayers €30 billion. The report seems to show the government was lured into helping the bank through its disastrous guaranteeing of bank deposits.
Into the synchronized global pullback or recession, and in some cases a depression, then these items are coming to the surface. For example, the 20 to 30 trillion of wealth that's held offshore. And most of that wealth, of course, goes through Britain, goes through the UK, because Britain has the least regulated financial markets in the world. That's why MF Global was in Britain. Lehman Brothers went through Britain. Bernie Madoff went through Britain. The latest Peregrine scandal went through Britain. JP Morgan's $2 to $9 billion loss on their balance sheet happened in London. So London is really the headquarters for global banking fraud. And even though the economy is contracting in Britain, I notice that the banking sector is still making huge profits. The Barclays chief operating officer that was caught committing fraud just got a golden parachute of £8 million. So as I've said, until you get rid of the financial terrorists, then you're going to continue to get, you're going to have these weapons of mass financial destruction blow up in your face.
One of the most influential men in the world, but no amount of money can buy his freedom. 62-year-old IMF head Dominique Strauss-Kahn spent the night in a jail cell in an East Harlem police station. It was a far cry from his $3,000 a night luxury hotel suite at the Sofitel in Times Square. That's where cops say he sexually assaulted a 32-year-old maid, chasing her around the suite naked, trying to rip off her underwear, then forcing her to perform a sex act.
It's almost like they're not human, isn't it? You look at them and you think, these people don't live in the same world as us. Do you remember that before the crisis happened, what they were doing was decimating the high street banks, laying off all their staff, putting us all on computers when they clearly hadn't developed the technology for those computers. They told us that they were doing that to make things better for us. They didn't. They made things worse for us. And it was simply in order to collect up an enormous amount of money that they could invest in the casino of international banking, and they blew it because they didn't understand it. And then they come back to us and say, oh, can you bail us out now for hundreds of millions of pounds? We give them the flipping money and they don't lend it to us even though they've promised to do so. They have the gall to increase their wages by 12%, to give themselves bonuses and say we've got to do this because if we don't, we'll leave the country. And all the time, actually, in the background, they're committing acts which in any other business I think would be seen as criminal. I have no respect for British bankers and the British banking system at all. They've dragged us into that situation. It's about time they started getting us out of it.
Another posh New York City hotel, another hotel maid saying she was sexually assaulted by another foreign banker.
$96 billion lawsuit just filed against 17 major banks. There's 236 resignations from the world banks. The arrest of the leaders of the criminal cabal. The dark cabal rats are panicking and turning on each other. They are threatening to kill each other.
And just attack that market. You know, Greece was put out of business by financial terrorists. Same thing with Ireland, same thing with Italy, same thing with Spain. That's what we're dealing with here. Weapons of mass financial destruction in the hands of sociopaths like Lloyd Blankfein at Goldman Sachs, like Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan. These are the real terrorists.
We're cutting off their money and we're going to put them in jail. They have to surrender. Once these murderers are out of power, you will find so many wonderful things in your life. I guarantee you this.
To a different movement very quickly. Happy with how he looked. Everything's come together. So we got one more training session tomorrow, and then we head back to Ireland.
Again, I don't really think about my opponent. If he looks like my opponent or strikes like my opponent, I just spar with whoever's there. You know what I mean? I don't really think anything.
Just saying about submissions, you do them 100%. So yeah, obviously a tap, you know. We're not gonna let ourselves get damaged in training, but that's the good thing about submissions, that you can go 100% without getting hurt. Whereas with striking, you have to be more sensible because you don't want to knock people out, put them out of training for a long time. But as grappling, you go for it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much, man. What's your name?
Jason.
Jason, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Like every 2-3 months I would travel somewhere, and now that I have the opportunity to do that, I'm going to travel as much as I can.
The way, and here's some notes on Conor. He's the only UFC featherweight who has yet to go to a decision. McGregor has 12 career knockout wins. Incredibly, 9 of them have come against opponents who have never been KO'd. With a win over Max Holloway, Conor McGregor will have won 10 bouts in a row. The sky's the limit for you, Conor. Yeah. You have great skills on the mic. Yeah. You have great skills inside the octagon, yeah. and I think people are naturally gravitating to you.
Dublin, sunny Dublin. I'm looking forward to getting back seeing my girlfriend, my dog, my little family I have, you know what I mean? And then of course getting back training, getting back into my own little setup, you know, looking forward to seeing all the guys again and going at it. Finishing off the finishing touches for August 17th, to get ready, get the weight down. Not looking for this big ass flight, but
Them too. It's black.
what do you think? Some milk there? You're either gonna love me or you're gonna hate me. I mean, you're either gonna want to tune in to see me whoop ass, or you're gonna want to tune in to see me get my ass whooped. But you're gonna want to tune in. I look forward to the day when I'm old and you know what I mean, just eat what I want and become fat, you know what I mean, just be happy, a little happy fat guy.
Cockiness and a bit of a celebrity swagger about him, yeah. Have you noticed anything different?
No, not really, just same as normal, I think he just takes it in his stride.
He does take it in his stride as well, but you know, there is a sort of other persona, the celebrity
He
persona,
likes it, he likes the attention.
Well, who wouldn't like it?
Do you know what I mean? And that's good, like, and he knows how to play it as well, so. When Tony and Conor were having their arguments over the fighting, I used to get really upset and all, I'm saying, like, you know, because they just totally disagreed on it. And Tony was like, wasn't having a barb, it wasn't a proper job, and the usual. But then when he went to a fight, I said to him, they had actually had a huge argument one time and I was really upset over it. And he said, well, I'll go and see his fight. And after that, I think he realised this was that. And they actually get on a lot better than they did.
Oh yeah, I eat humble pie every day of the week, absolutely. And I'm happy to eat humble pie. I mean, as a father, yeah, absolutely, I'm happy. I mean, I'm glad that Conor is able to tell me, if he was to say, you're wrong every day of my life, I'd be happy to accept that, than me rather tell him he's been wrong once in his life, you know. So, yeah, I eat humble pie every day of the week. Lap her up, man, yeah, I love it. A bowl, I have actually bowls of humble pie in here, look, there's millions of here, look, it's all there. Humble pie all over the place.
FM 104. FM 104 phone show.
Hello, what's up? Where are you? Yeah, I'm just on the M50, yeah? I swear to God, I'm just coming onto the M50 now, I'll be down in 5 minutes. What? The radio's broke, you mad thing. I'm at the garage, I'm just at the phone at the garage to get petrol. I'm in Lucan. Fucking, I'm gonna spawn world champions, yeah? My offspring. Not yet. I'm still becoming a world champion myself.
Here, take that. Listen, we bought this for you anyway. We saw this in the shop. Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston. First round knockout. It's a 3D picture.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Take off the cellophane and let's see what it's like. Let's see that. Can you see that in 3D?
Oh, that's deadly, isn't it?
What do you think, this one or this one? Collars up or collars down? Yeah, I don't know how you stick these in. I'm still only a little rookie. Still only a beginner at sticking these things in. You know what I mean? I'm only getting the hang of it. Who's that?
Me again. Show us that picture there from Maud. I want to show Jer.
What picture?
The Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston. It is deadly, isn't it? There's not many of those now, you know?
No, that's brilliant.
And also, the last place where you think you'd get that, in the garden centre.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Shades, no? Too much? Maybe? What, Dee? Pair of shades? Too much?
No shades.
See, most people are saying, no, that's too much. She's like, no, shades on. It's never too
When
much.
it's too much, that's how you know you're not in the right direction.
Yeah. That's correct. Bit over the top, am I good? It's not even my christening. Handkerchief, dicky bow, fucking shades, camera crew, a 3-strong camera crew. It's a bit much maybe, but fuck it. Where's he gone? Where's he at? What's story, Megan, all right? You don't mind me bringing these on? Yeah, you asked to come. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll get you a card for me and Dee and folks.
There's wine and all outside if you want to get that.
And then he looks at me and goes, welcome to Vegas, Conor. Yeah! I'm like that. With the dicky and all that, with the shades and everything. I felt like fucking unbelievable it was, yeah? Surreal. I swear to God, I went home. When it was all said and done, went home, done a walkout. That night, done a, just walk. And I've been walking ever since. Yeah.